If you think we give a rat's ass about the cupcake pictures you put on Instagram, well, we actually kind of do, don't we, Arch?
Yeah, we do.
But you better also like, download, and subscribe to the Not These Two Fucking Guys podcast. I'm Rock.
And I love cupcakes. I'm Archie.
I could tell.
Well, our opinions, they might not matter to some, but...
What are you doing in there?
It's a podcast.
Immature, crass, trashy. And those are their good qualities. These poor schmucks are a couple of IQ points away from eating paste. But when it comes to music, sports, and comedy, well, that's all they know. You're listening to
Not These Two Fucking Guys.
Not These Two Fucking Guys podcast.
I just want to tell you one thing, Rock.
Jason.
Have you ever been stoned in a car and you forgot your dog was in the back seat?
I cannot say I have. wait, let me guess. You know a guy.
I'm just, because this was brought up the other day, and a couple of years ago, wifey was at a company happy hour, and she needed a ride home. She had a couple drinks, and I had to get my neighbor to drive me because I was a little, stoned, as the kids say.
So hang on, let me get this straight. You had to pick up your wife, but you had to have someone drive you to your wife.
Because I had to bring the dog, and I didn't want to drive with the dog stoned. Does that make sense?
The dog was stoned?
That means that's irrelevant in the story.
All right.
So me and the neighbor, we go to pick up my wife from a happy hour, and we're sitting there.
Happy hour.
Hey, some happy hour. So we're sitting there, we're talking, we're bullshitting, we're having a good time. And I'm like, I can't believe, I'm sitting here stoned, and I'm like, I can't believe my wife, I have to pick her up from a happy hour, but whatever. But she's being responsible, so I like that. So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, Lenny pops his head up in between. I'm like, holy shit! When the fuck did you get here?
Welcome to the Not These Two Fucking Guys podcast, and we are so honored tonight to have Rob Moschetti from the mighty M.O.D. on our line with us. What's up, Rob?
What's happening, guy? Glad to be here.
We're happy to have you. We'd actually rather be watching you tonight at the Welmont than talking to you on the phone, but we'll take what we can get, right?
Yeah, it was a nightmare. I was planning on doing this interview from the show that was canceled because of the panic that's going on with this coronavirus thing. It's just wreaking havoc on the whole world, honestly, not just our show.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy that like full tours are being canceled, and I've seen a bunch of musicians out there that have bought up merch for a tour. Now they're stuck with merch; they have no place to sell, so they're selling on their website. So it's tough when you're not at a show. You're less likely to sell merch, obviously. Yeah,
that actually happened to us. I mean, Billy and the other two guys they're living in Texas now, so they paid for flights and driving up here. So two of them drove up with a trailer full of merch and all this stuff, and we were going to rehearse. I guess it was 2 days ago, and I didn't even get my bass out of the case, and we get the call from the promoter that the show was canceled, and we all kind of sensed that it was probably coming. Billy spent a bunch of money on merch and getting his ass up here, and my friends and my old band Propane, they're about to start an American tour. He flew his whole band now. Gary, he flew them in. I don't even know if they did one show. So they just arrived last week, and they were supposed to start. I'm guessing that probably not going to be doing a tour. His whole band's from Europe, so it's crazy. I never thought in my lifetime I'd ever see something as bizarre as this.
Was there any word from the promoters or any type of from the Welmont saying that maybe there's a tentative date or anything like that?
Yeah, well, it wasn't even tentative. It was just they said it was postponed. So I mean, if this whole thing goes away, which I don't know when it could possibly be safe. That measles outbreak took months for people to stop freaking out about. I mean, if by the summer it's safe to do, possibly we'll do a makeup date. But we have other shit planned this summer, and that's in jeopardy too, because who the hell knows how long this thing's going to go on, or if it's going to get worse, or we have a lot of stuff planned for Europe. they're in more of a state of panic than us. I'm hearing now, so they may be canceling big festivals that we're on, and if that's how it has to be, I'm fine with it. It's just wreaking havoc. So we just got to sit back and wait and see what happens.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I never thought. I mean that NBA cancels, NHL cancels. Major League Baseball pushes their season back. These major tours are canceling. It's like it kind of feels like almost like apocalyptic, right? And it's a terrible virus that's going around, right? And it sucks because it really affects like the elderly and people with compromised immune systems. But I do think there's a little bit of fear mongering that's going on where the media kind of like scares the shit out of you.
The media calls it the deadly coronavirus. They don't say that's just killing old people or people with compromised health. They're just scaring the shit out of everybody. And it's affecting, economy. It's affecting everything, people's jobs and livelihoods. And schools are closing now. And it's like, oh, this is crazy. Other than music, I'm in sanitation. So my job's not going to stop. I'm going to be cleaning up all this shit that, people are afraid of touching.
Yeah.
But as far as like the shows and the sporting events, and if it is, a life-threatening thing, I guess they gotta somehow contain it before it does start spreading. But I think people, the news, and they're feeding this monster, making it out to be even worse than it really is, scaring the shit out of people.
Yeah, they do. And the problem is that they don't. I mean, you don't hear about the over 70,000 people that have actually recovered from this so far. You know what I mean? They do paint a doom and gloom picture.
Yeah, they love it. They're fucking loving it. They're getting paid, but the rest of the country's not. We're going to lose on our asses. Everybody's going to be fucked because of this. But then the media, they just feed on it. They're loving every second of it. I don't think everybody's as informed as they need to be about it. We're all in the dark, I guess we just have to wait and see what the hell happens.
I think that's just it too. I think like the fear of the unknown, because they don't know. They can't 100% say when it'll go away or if they're going to find a vaccine or a cure for it or what have you. But when it comes to, we're all musicians, right? It's not just the musicians that lose. It's the promoters, it's the photographers, it's the people that, the bartenders, what have you. This in the U.S. is going to, loss of billions and billions of dollars of revenue.
Oh, totally. The one thing that I have to look at it is like having done it in the past and just doing this European tour that we did in November, December. I'm glad we did it when we did, because you don't know how long this crap's going to go on. And I just turned 51 years old, and this M.O.D. tour was supposed to be kind of like a 30-something year anniversary of S.O.D. and M.O.D. So I really wasn't signed on to do. It's not as if I rejoined the band. It was just like I kind of signed on to do this tour. And I'm glad that I did what it did. I think we did about 30 shows, and they were all amazing. It was a great experience, a great way to, because the last show I did with M.O.D. before this tour was in 1995 or maybe late 94. And then I went on and did other stuff. So I'm just glad that I was able to get it done, at least what we did. And if Athens, Greece was my last show with these guys, then I'm cool with that, But, I would like to finish it out and do what I intended to do the entire, I don't know, I'm not calling it a farewell. It was more of my farewell than the band's. I'm sure they're going to continue. But I was looking at this as like my last tour with the band, or last tour with any band, really. Like I said, I'm up there in the age now, and I'm pretty satisfied with where I've been so far and what I've done. And, my next goal is retiring from Sanitation in 12 years,
You've definitely had a great career in music, and I actually followed you on Facebook, that the tour you just talked about, the European tour, and it looked like awesome shows, great crowd response, like fucking huge crowds, and then like when you were like posting videos of like the cities you were in, really, really cool. I mean, if that is like your swan song, so to say, I mean, that's a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I filmed every day. I have a documentary that I did on my, with iMovie on my phone, and just every day, every show, I was, re-travel. We were jumping on planes or boats or, other flights out there. I just documented everything, and then filmed like every day I kind of trimmed it down to about 10 minutes as far as editing. I'd get some stuff at the town, hanging out before the show, some of the one song from the show. If anything eventful happened backstage or hotel wise, I'd film that. But then I turned all of that 1 month tour into a quick music video for the song Hooligan and just basically put almost every clip in this video. It's just so fast. It's like Clockwork Orange on fucking methamphetamine. It was, it's so fast. Every clip goes by so quick. There's like barely any live footage as far as filming. It's a lot of photos. It's almost like going through a photo album, just zipping through with your thumb. But it was really cool. And like I said, if that's the last of it, then so be it. I said I wanted to end the career on my terms, because after Propane, I did Generation Kill for a while, and we made 2 records, and it just wasn't getting any traction like M.O.D. and Propane had. And what I was doing was I was trying to get, guys who probably didn't deserve to be in a touring signed band. I was trying to carry guys who didn't really deserve it to a place they had never really been. And that's the reason it never really succeeded, because it was like one guy can't make a band. It has to be, everybody has to be solid, like a football team. You know what I mean? You have like your linemen, you have your receivers, you have your quarterback. Everybody has to be strong though, or else the team just ain't going to be a success. So I tried for probably 20 years with bands to try and mercy fuck my friends into getting to experience what I did. And it just never worked. So when the last band I did crumbled, I was pretty much done. And I was like, I was annoyed because I didn't leave on my terms. The circumstances kind of ended that period of my life. But then when Billy called, immediately after I was done with these knuckleheads, Billy called and told me what he wanted to do. And he had mentioned this 30-something year reunion years ago at his mom's 90th birthday party he invited me to.
Wow.
He wanted to, he said we should do this reunion thing. And I was just there as his friend and to see his mom. And I agreed to it then, maybe, I think it was about 5 years ago, something like that. But I didn't realize that he would actually call me 5 years later and say, we're doing that tour. He called me at the perfect time, because I was like, you know what? He wasn't even expecting me to say yes. But I was like, abso-fucking-lutely, because I want to go out strong the way I came in. If the circumstances for it ending are what's happening now, I'll accept that more than failure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like if this pandemic or whatever the fuck it is the reason why I'm going to end it, I'll accept that more than what happened with my previous bands, of just falling short.
Well, I'll tell you what. So last year, I'm a big Life of Agony fan, right? So I was like, Rock, we're going to see LOA at St. Vitus. Yep. And you opened up.
Yeah, with that band.
Yeah, so we got there a little early. We were hanging out, and I was like, this band's pretty fucking dope. I was like, I got the tickets last second, and I just didn't even know who was like playing on the bill. And I was like, oh shit. And then I actually, acquaintances with, I think it's Rob Yulk, the drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I forget his last name. But
everybody does.
I was very impressed. It was a good fucking opening set, bro.
No, it was cool. It was fun. It just wasn't, it was the live band. Like 2 people made that record, me and the drummer. Uh-huh. And then I brought in the band, because I felt with Generation Kill, it was just, I wrote 90% of that material anyway, and still had some areas that I wasn't happy with. And it usually was when I tried to include the other people, as dicky as that may sound, because when you write full songs, you already hear them in your head before you give them to the other bandmates. And then, of course, you want people to put their own fingerprints on the songs. But other times, I'm not comparing myself to like a Dave Grohl or something, but like when he wrote all those early Foo Fighter songs, first he did the first album completely by himself.
Yep.
And then the second record, he tried incorporating the other guys a little more, who he had hired for live, but it didn't work out with the drummer because he just wasn't playing what he heard in his head. And then Dave Grohl ends up scratching all that guy's drum tracks and redoing them himself. Yeah, so I mean, I ran into that issue with that unknown drummer you were just speaking about. Like, I'd ask for, like, on the drums, just a 1 hit, and he'd give me 6. You know what I mean? And I'd say, I just hear, boom, a big snare, and then he would give me, doom, doom, boom, boom. And I'm not knocking drummers, because I play drums as well. It's a very resentful instrument, where it's like, if someone's writing the songs, and then no one likes to be told what to fucking play. You know what I mean? No one. And it's like, it's really difficult trying to. So when I did that last band, I wanted to try and cut out all the arguments and bullshit. It's like, look, I have these songs written in my head. I wanted to fucking track them. It should have been a solo project. That was my mistake.
Gotcha.
Was that just even including one other person? That's the main reason the whole project just went to shit. You know, because I became partners with somebody who barely contributed to it. You know, when shit happened, when shit hit the fan, I couldn't even really just leave with it. And I had no desire to just replace everybody, and it should have just been a solo project. You know, that was my mistake with it.
Yeah.
But the thing is this. I don't even listen to the 2 Generation Kill records anymore. I don't listen to the record I did with DMC. I don't listen to the Pain Method record. It's like for some reason, those records, was a part of my life at that moment. I had to get them out of me and recorded and tracked, and you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And then I moved on. But those records, all of those records were recorded for different reasons than the M.O.D. records I did and the Propane records I did. I could still go back and listen to those Propane records and M.O.D. records and not have any ill will or bad thoughts or bad memories about it.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I don't even want to hear Rob Dukes' voice coming through my speakers right now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. And I don't want to hear guys that I have really no connection to at all.
Yeah.
Or friendships with at all. I don't want to hear them coming out of my fucking speakers, you know? Like, especially on songs that I wrote.
Gotcha.
So I was just like, those records, I was trying to just get emotion. Like the DMC record, I'm still great friends with DMC, and I'm working with him right now on stuff.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of issues recording that stuff because, you know, I had 4 lazy motherfuckers with me, and I'm being told to slow down as I'm working with a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like, D was loving everything I was writing, and I was being told to slow down because the other guys want to get involved. And I'm like, then get involved. What the fuck do you want me to do? I can't slow down. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. So everybody needs to, how about everybody step up, you know, instead of slow down? So, I mean, it was really difficult. That basically ended my relationship with all of those guys because DMC like connected with me, and me and him and then I joined his live band that played Run DMC material on stage. But he chose me for a fucking reason. You know what I mean? He saw that I was hungry and aggressive and wrote constantly, and you know. So there's a lot of like anger and resentment and jealousy with all that shit. And I was like, all right, whatever. What a rant that was.
Listen, and we can relate to that. I mean, obviously, me and Archie are in a band together, and it's always, you know, you can't slow down for somebody, right? Because if you have something better, bring it to the table. If you have something different, bring it to the table. But if you have nothing, then this is what we're going to go with the people that are moving the fastest.
That's exactly it. The funny thing is this, like, after all the bullshit I knew when I joined Billy in 92 that he was the boss, and I accepted it. And I just went there and did what was expected of me in that role. And then when I joined Propane, I did the same thing, except for before I joined Propane, no one else had written any music other than Gary. I got to write music. You know, the other members were like, why are you wasting your time? He's not going to use it. He used it. And then I was playing guitar in Propane, and they're like, oh, well, Gary plays all the guitars on the records, too. Well, I played on the 2 records I do with him, you know.
Yeah.
He saw that I was eager to write and play, and if I wasn't stupid enough to think like those were my bands, after 20 years of trying to get these other bands to the level of Propane and M.O.D., trying to be the boss and the leader, when Billy called, I was so fucking grateful because I don't want to be the fucking boss and I don't want to be the leader. I hooked up with Billy. It's like, okay, we're going on tour here. We're going on tour there. Here's your flight info. Here's your, you know, here's this, here's that. Here's 2 new basses. Here's the company that's endorsing us. Your gear's taken care of, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm like, I didn't care what the set list was. I didn't care what the orders of the songs were. I just knew everything was going to be taken care of because as much as a fucking lunatic as Billy is, everything's always taken care of professionally, you know?
It's almost like renting like renting a house. If something breaks, you guys fix it.
Yeah, you know what? I was so, you know what I did on this last tour? I got on the plane and I got to the show and the gear was waiting for me and the shows were packed and everything that he promised me came through, and
I would love for that to
and
happen.
that was it. And the funny thing too is the other two guys weren't members of the band in the past. So the drummer was there for like 5 years, and he did a Europe tour with Billy, a short one. But when I hooked up with these guys last year, they gave me the set list at home. I learned 20 songs. I had to relearn a few, obviously, because I played them already, 2 decades earlier. But when I got there, it was like we could have played live that day.
Yeah.
They learned their shit. They played it perfect. I knew my shit and played it perfect. It was like, we have video of our first rehearsal. It sounds better than the last 20 years of me trying to jam with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, if I skipped 1 week of rehearsal with these other guys, they'd forget the songs. I'm like, I'm in bizarro world. Like, don't you guys want to,
Yeah.
There's a reason why people get to that next level, and then there's a reason why they don't, because there's a million bands who are professionally prepared and still don't make it. You know what I mean? So you could be the best band with the best songs and the best look, and still, for some reason, sometimes things don't work out.
Yeah.
What I was dealing with was just total incompetence for 20 freaking years, A few of the guys along the way, I wouldn't say that. It doesn't apply to everybody. But a majority of it was just, excuse after excuse. With these guys, there's no excuses. Hear the songs, learn them, or someone else will. And you don't even get that, or someone else will. You just know in your head, I need to know these freaking songs for my own pride. I'm not trying to impress Billy.
No, exactly.
But what happens is, some people, if they don't write the songs, what I was noticing too was, if people were included in songs, those are the ones they paid attention to more than the ones that were written already. And which was kind of shitty, because when I joined M.O.D, I had to learn 3 M.O.D records and the S.O.D record before I even met Bill.
Oh, wow.
When I got the Propane gig, they had 2 albums out already, and they were still playing Crumbsucker songs. So I had to learn that shit, and I had a week to get ready. It wasn't, I didn't want to give them any doubt at all that he's the right guy or the wrong guy. I didn't want any question at all. And that's kind of like what I expect in return, And when I worked with D, the first time I played with DMC, I showed up a day before the gig in the state we were playing, met the other members, we jammed for an hour, and we were ready. You know what I mean? Like, because everybody did their homework. There was no, I need the vocals to know where I am, or I couldn't hear the drummer, or there's just no excuses when you're working with, like, real pros. All that shit goes out the window. That's what I missed so much for the last 20 years. And when I got back with Billy, it was like, I'm home again.
If you don't mind, if I could take him back in the day, De-Evolution.
Yep.
If you can recall writing that album.
Oh, totally. I remember every moment of it.
What went on? I'd love to know, like, when, you came into the band, like 2 years prior to that?
92 I joined. I was in the studio with a band called Mutilation. It was basically me and my friends. It was like a thrash project. We were kind of trying to find ourselves. Like, every band that hit at that point, that's who we were trying to be, because we were like trying to find our legs, So, like, we were a bit of Slayer, a bit of Prong, a bit of Biohazard, a bit of death metal at points, and it was a little confusing because there was 5 guys in that band, and then it dwindled down to 4. Just too many cooks,
Yep.
So I'm in the studio with those guys working on material, and the engineer had just recorded Rhythm of Fear M.O.D record. He pulled me to the side, and he's like, I just finished the M.O.D record, and Billy's looking to go out, and you'd be perfect for it, And I'm like, well, hook me up. And this was Steve Evans. He was really not much of a producer at that point as far as his name. He was a great producer, engineer, but just unknown. Then he went on to record amazing, big metal records later on. But I asked him, I said, what do I need to do? He goes, learn every M.O.D song and the entire S.O.D album, because Billy's just going to call out songs and you need to know them. So I did that. I met with Billy. The first rehearsal was kind of like a rehearsal. It wasn't even an audition. It was just, we went there. He called out songs. We didn't even have a drummer at the time. It was just, he showed up in a room, asked me to play. Whatever I did, and he said, all right, now we need a drummer. So, we recruited Tony Scaglione from Whiplash, who filled in Slayer for a little bit, and then we took on Tony Patero from Whiplash as the lead guitarist. And we did a Europe tour in 93. On that tour, Billy had already known that those two guys weren't going to be part of the next record for whatever reasons. I didn't want to know. I didn't even care. As long as I was at that point.
Exactly.
The tour ended, and it was just me and Billy again. But Billy plays guitar, and he plays bass. When he was discovered for SOD, he was playing bass in a band called the Psychos and CBGBs. And basically he saved Scott and Charlie from getting their asses kicked. That's when Scott said, "Hey, you want to be part of our band?" You know. So me and Billy, Billy started playing riffs on this little handheld cassette player, and he had played bass, I think, on the prior record, on the Rhythm of Fear record. He played the bass on the album, and you know he's a solid bass player. So when he started showing me the guitar riffs, I started playing, and he just froze, and he goes, "Wait, what are you doing?" "I'm playing this." I don't know what does that mean. I'm not going to play this. You might as well do the bass then if you want me to play exactly what you're playing on guitar. So his ears kind of perked up like a dog because like I was doing things that he wouldn't have done and things like a bass player would do, you know. So when I listen back to that The Evolution record, I remember like he's playing a straight G chord and I'm doing scales over it. And at first he was reluctant, like saying, "You can't do that." I'm like, "Yes, trust me." So like little by little, he started seeing, and especially when we got a drummer, then he really started understanding what I was doing. You know what I mean? I was filling in the gaps, and I play in the pocket. I'm not playing exactly what the guitar player does. I'm filling those gaps in between. And if you really break down the bass on that record, I may have overplayed a little bit because it was my first, other than the Mutilation record, which was like on a small independent. When I got the gig with Billy, we went into Pyramid Studios in Ithaca, and we were originally going to work with Alex Perry-Alice, who did all like the records that I grew up on: Overkill, Anthrax, Testament, SOD, M.O.D. So I really wanted to shine on that fucking record. So I really applied myself, and maybe over applied myself, because there's a little bit of overplaying on that record, but I wanted to stand out, and you know, it worked out. Like the famous quote that I got from the record company in Europe, like just to have M.O.D. on a label like Music for Nations overseas. I remember getting Metallica imports on Music for Nations. So the head of the label heard the record and remembered me from the tour prior and says to me right in front of Billy, he's like, "So Rob, you're going to steal the show again this year?" And Billy's response was, "The only thing this spick is going to steal is your wallet." So, yeah, I mean, I remember every ounce of recording that thing, and it was cool because my voice is all over that record too, but it wasn't even supposed to be. I did my bass tracks. I left. I did my few backups. There was nothing much. And then I left. And a week later, after Billy was done doing vocals, he called me. He's like, "You need to come back to the studio. I want you to do some singing on it." And like some back and forth stuff. Because the producer, Rob Hunter, was in like Raven. He was the drummer who played with hockey equipment on back in the day. I don't know if you remember.
Oh my God, no.
Yeah, he used to play with like pyro attached to his head, and he would hit the cymbals with his face. But he's like, "I like Rob's voice. We got to get him to come back and do more." So I drove back up to Ithaca and got to go back in and do a lot of back and forth vocals with Billy. And our voices were total opposites. I was like Lemmy and Max Cavalera combined, and Billy was like this. At that point, he was singing kind of like Nuclear Assault a little high, screamy kind of shit, you know. And the contrast was just so obvious, you know. Whenever I sang, it was just so clear that it wasn't Billy, and you know, that caught a lot of people's attention. But honestly, looking back, I don't think that should have been an M.O.D. record. I think it should have just been a Billy Milano solo record or something, because to me, it doesn't really sound like any other M.O.D. record. Probably because I wrote, you know, it's a 50-50 record musically.
Yeah.
I tried adjusting to the style of what he did, but it just was. It's not who I am, you know. So
Would you like how different would you say his vocals were compared to the other M.O.D?
he was singing like in full voice, from the gut more than like a lot of the earlier records. It was more throat.
Okay. So then this was like a little more melodic-ish.
Yeah, but he was singing from his gut, but it made his voice a little higher than usual.
Okay.
And he doesn't do that anymore. He went back to he's a little more guttural now. His voice now I think is better than it's ever been, to be honest with you.
What's your favorite one of your favorite songs from that record?
Oh man. Oof. It depends, for different reasons.
It depends which child you want to leave at the supermarket.
Yeah, okay, there's kind of like a corny song called Rock Tonight, but I love it because the bass playing is crazy and the guitar solo is amazing. But it's like a hopped up rock song. So I'm playing like rock scales at a fast pace, you know, but I like that. I like Super Touch is definitely another one. And, you know, probably for selfish reasons, because I felt like the bass really, when he's playing just a straight chord, I'm all over the place, but every note is landing in key, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I remember the battle that I had to fight. It wasn't long or brutal, but I remember the battle that I had to have to get those ideas across. And then to kind of convert Billy to his previous bass player was Danny Lilker. So it's like, he's used to just straightforward, playing, I mean, there's really no soul or groove to Dan Lilker. He's just very on the one, straightforward, mimicking the guitar riffs.
Gotcha.
I have Latin blood, so it's like I can't help but fill in all those 16th notes. Yeah, it's like those. I hear 16th notes when you're playing, fourths and eighths. I'm hearing tick, 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 and in the holes, even if it's not there,
Yeah.
So I want to fill them. But yeah, that record changed my life. It's not a record where I could say I love every song. Only record I could truly say that about that I'm a part of is Propane's album Contents Under Pressure. That's the one album I can listen to from beginning to end without forwarding through anything.
Okay.
Out of all the records I've done, for some reason, that one, it's probably my favorite as far as songs go. And like I said, not forwarding. When you're listening to your own album and you're forwarding through songs, it's not a good sign.
Tell us about that. How was that writing process?
Like I said, the drummer when I first joined, told me, he's like, we didn't hire you. I wasn't even playing guitar at that point. They knew that I played guitar, but I was a bass player when they saw me. M.O.D. opened for Propane on a tour. So they saw me playing guitar at sound check because M.O.D. didn't really sound check at that point. We didn't give a shit. But I never got sound checks because I went from an unknown band to a well-known band. So I'm like, fuck this. I'm taking advantage of sound check, So I went up there and played drums, played guitars, tested the mics. I'm like, fuck this. So they were watching, They're like, oh, you can play guitar, obviously. So when I got the gig, the drummer told me, he's like, we didn't hire you for your guitar wizardry. We hired you because you're a madman on stage, and the Propane lacked that at that point. They were boring to watch in the early days. I joined, and as soon as I joined, I started writing and recording shit. And, the other two guys were kind of like, don't waste your time. He's not going to use your stuff. And because he never used theirs, or they just accepted that he was the writer. And I'm like, well, whatever. I'm going to present a couple of tunes and see what he says. So I showed him Gun You Down, and he loved it, put it on the record. So at that point, I wasn't going to play guitar on the records. Gary had played all the guitars in the first two records. He was going to play the guitar on the third record, Contents, and he did up until we got to Gun You Down. He couldn't get that Trapped Under Ice chunking that I did in Gun You Down. I don't know if you're familiar with the song or not, but it's a lot of to me it was a rip off of like Trapped Under Ice with that a lot of Metallica kind of chunking.
Yeah.
So when Gary tried doing it, he couldn't. It just wasn't having the same effect. He goes, well, how did you do that? What are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm muffling and I'm not muffling. I'm muffling. It's going on and off. So he goes, all right, you're going to have to play on this track. I'm like, all right, great. I played on the track, and we listened back to the entire record, and that song stuck out like a sore thumb, but in a good way. And I see him scratching his head, and he's like, fuck, you got to go back and retrack the entire record now like that. And I'm like, yeah, it's fucking true story. I mean, Gun You Down is the reason I got to play on the rest of the record, because he's very meticulous, and he wanted it all to be cohesive with each other. I didn't care if it stood out. Like, I don't like albums that all sound exactly, every song sounds the same, or production's all the same. I like, like Sabbath records. Sometimes it sounds like Zeppelin records. They sound like they're recorded in different countries at times. Each song should have its own identity, but he wanted it all to be cohesive. So he's like, you got to go back and play every other song now. And I was like, great. So that's what I did.
That's pretty awesome that like you're willing to bet on yourself that they're not going to use your shit, and you stay true to what you are and what you do, and now you're playing the whole album. That's pretty fantastic.
Well, that job band allowed me to not have a job. So I lived in, they basically put me up in a beach house in Long Island, and I didn't have to work, and I had a little mini recording studio in my house, and I'm like, what am I going to do all day? I bought a BMX, a bong, and fucking
the essentials.
And I just sat home and played music and wrote music, recorded music, and I just kept sending him ideas and not getting frustrated. Like, if he didn't like it, I just gave him so much shit that something stuck out, and it actually changed his opinion, because the next record, the self-titled record after that, he used not only my material, he used the other guitar player material, and was a little more open to other people's ideas, and I think that's what gave that band longevity, is that he switched members every few years. I had to leave that band because I ran out of shit to do. Like, he was a crumb sucker, so they were like prog metal in a way. So he dumbed it down to being Propane, and I was running on whole cylinders to being Propane. You know what I mean? Like, he toned it down, and I really had nothing left in my tank after those two records. I ran out of shit to do. You get very limited in that genre, so I had to leave, and he had to find new guys, because they evolved into something else than what we were, on the records I did with them. There was a progression in those first four records, and then the self-titled record after Contents was a little redundant. Just because we tuned the guitars way lower, it was still that same 3-chord progression, and it was like, yeah, this is getting a little stale. I bailed. It all worked out, because the good thing about this stuff is now, like, Gary and Billy both have tons of respect for me, because when I quit Propane, we were about to do an arena tour in Europe with this huge Oi band called the Bo's Uncles or something like that out there. They're huge out there. We played with them with They were okay. It was us, Motorhead, and this Bo's Uncles. They were going on over Motorhead. That's how big they were over there. And they liked us on those festivals, so they invited us to do the stadium tour. And things went south with me and the band at that point. Before then, on the American tour, and I told Gary, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to bail. And he's like, you're walking out on a lot of money. And I was like, yeah, but I don't do this for the money. This is a fucking drag. I'm not having fun. None of us are getting along. And I never did it for the money. And if I'm going to be miserable, I might as well sleep in my own bed and be miserable, But now, as a result of that, and then going and leaving him and doing my own thing for years, and they both have mad respect for me, because they know I'm a musician more than a wannabe rock star, There's a difference, Like, after M.O.D's done with this, I'm still going to, play music and write music and create, and it's like asking a painter to not paint anymore. If no one's buying my paintings, or I don't want to sell my paintings anymore, I'm still going to paint. They know that about me, that I'll always be a musician. I may not be a road dog anymore, or sell my soul to a record company to try and get my stuff out there. I really have no interest in it anymore, as far as I got it all out of my system, which is freaking awesome, because I never thought I'd ever be able to say that. But rejoining M.O.D for this thing allowed me closure in that point of my life now. I've never been happier without music. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense.
No,
you
it
know?
makes total sense.
I developed a life without it.
You seem like somebody who's at peace. You know, you've done it all. The touring, the writing,
Right.
the
I'm at
albums.
peace. That's the perfect word.
Yeah, that's an awesome place to be. I mean, because you have to have a lot of perspective to get there, right? I mean, I know musicians that I see on, you know, TV, whatever, that literally, like, that's maybe all they know or all they do, and they feel empty or have a void if they're not doing it.
I thought it was my whole identity, and it's not. You know what I mean? Like, it's a huge part of my life. And I used to say, music is my life. You know when that all fucking changed? 2015, I lost 2 of my brothers in a 3-month period.
Oh, God, so sorry.
And I'm like, okay, so we're 5 boys. And in 3 months, 2 of them closest in my age, I'm the youngest, were gone. My family was split in half in 3 months. And I was in the middle of recording with DMC at that point. I lost 2 brothers during the making of that fucking DMC record.
Oh my God.
I put everything into that record, you know, every ounce of every bit of what I had, you know. But in the big scheme of things, music ain't my life. My family and life is my life. You know what I mean? Not just music. Like, my priorities completely shifted, and I regretted every ounce of time that I didn't spend with my family when they were gone, you know. And they were both proud of me, but that shifted my whole train of thought. Like, music is one part of my life, but my family, losing my brothers like that, made me realize that it's not everything, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough, and you know, so sorry to hear that, obviously, but it does give you perspective, right? And
oh, totally.
You know, you said that your goal is to retire in sanitation, and I think that's a super healthy outlook, because look at right now what's going on. If music is your only gig, you're kind of fucked, you know?
Oh, dude, let me tell you. When I quit propane, I was 28 years old, and I got a job in sanitation then. I'm 51 now, but since propane, I've released 2 Generation Kill albums, and I released the DMC record, and, you know, recorded that Pain Method thing, and then I'm back with Billy again. And what's cool is that I was able to get a normal life at 28, build some kind of life as far as, you know, my future. Because I know a lot of 50-year-old men who thought they were going to make it, and now they're 50-year-old guys who never had a serious job, but have nothing financially to show for it. Not a W-2 or Social Security for the future. Like, I'm so glad I got a job at 28, but still was able to maintain a life in music as well. If I never did music, I always tell my wife, if I didn't do music, I'd still be a garbage man right now.
It's funny you say that, because one of the questions that I have, I like to ask all musicians the same question, because I know Rocco and I have, you know, always had the fucking daydream of, you know, what if we just took it on tour? What if we just, you know, tried to make it to the next level? We were hometown heroes, and that was about it for us. But what I want to ask is, when you go out on tour, you do like you go to Europe for a month, couple months, you're playing in front of fucking thousands of people, you're having a great time. You still got to come home, and you still got to make scratch, you know?
Oh, dude, let me tell you. I came home from Europe December 22nd. I was supposed to go to work Christmas. No, I came home the 23rd, and I was supposed to work Christmas Eve. You know what I mean? Like, after doing 30 shows, I was supposed to just get off the plane and go right to fucking work, you know? Because I use all my vacation time to do the tour.
It could fuck with someone's head.
Oh, totally.
You're playing to thousands of people in Europe.
People be mistaken. I'm not quitting. I'm not leaving touring because it's so tough. I'm leaving it because I can't do both. Like, my priority is my job.
Yeah.
And my job's going to be paying me, you know, when I'm older and retire. Music's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a big part of my decision with that, too, was just running into Rob Kabula at our Jersey show. He hasn't been in Agnostic Front for fucking 30 years. But he's always going to be Rob Kabula from Agnostic Front. And I'm like, that's how I look at it. It's like, you know what I did, no one can ever take it away from me. Even if I walk away, Google it or search the records don't disappear. You know what I mean? Like those records.
Yeah.
You know, M.O.D is part of M.O.D and Propane are part of like the foundation of that type of music, believe it or not. You know what I mean? Especially M.O.D more than Propane. So no one can ever take that away from me, even if I walk away. Those records will still stand the test of time because of Billy, honestly.
Yeah.
He doesn't have anything. Billy doesn't have anything else. He really gave his life to this, you know? I gave some of my life to it. He gave that's all he is, you know what I mean? And not in a bad way. But this is all he's got. He got his dogs and he's got SOD or MOD, whichever one he's doing at the time.
I feel like you really struck the right balance, you know. Talking to you now, you said 51 years old, you're at peace, you know, you're successful career on both ends, right? You know, working a real job and being a musician. And I think that's, you know, that's awesome. I mean, that's.
Yeah, not a lot of people get to say they can walk away, and I know I'm ready to, you know, I do. I truly in my heart know that, especially after the last tour. I had a great time. Shows were great. But the other 23 hours were mind-numbingly boring, and I love performing. But sitting in a van or a bus or getting on a plane at 4 a.m. and rushing around here, there, and then sitting, you know, the hurry up and wait syndrome, and it's great for a young guy. You know, my first tour at Billy, I was living at my mom's still. You know, I had no responsibilities. It's different now, you know, so. I'm glad I was able to do it, and I'll try and finish it out as best I can with this schedule. But as far as this, you know, coronavirus thing, if that puts us a halt to it, then so be it. I can live with it.
So, say I ran into you on the street, and I was like, "Oh, hey, how you doing, man? I'm actually I'm a musician. I'm trying to make it." Mm-hmm. What would you say to me?
Please yourself. Don't try to please others because it's impossible.
Gotcha.
You know, that's the only thing I can tell you is be true to yourself, because you can never please everyone. There's, you know, some people love lobster and some people hate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the only one you can really please is yourself, because you can't please everybody, you know? And if people connect to what you do, that's a blessing, you know? But you know, there's a lot of bands that are hugely successful that just I don't connect to. I don't have any. Everybody loves Tool. I'm not a fan. I don't hate. I'm not being a dick about it. It just doesn't grab me.
I'm with you on
that.
That
Doesn't mean it's not good. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's not good. It doesn't mean they're super successful, but they're being true to themselves, and they don't give a fuck if I like them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And Mike Muir even said it. Just because you don't like it, don't mean it ain't no good. You know, it's the truth. Just, I would say, be true to yourself, and people can recognize that. Some people don't even like what we do, but if they come see us, I want them to see that I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm not faking it, you know?
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, like, even like Tool's a good example. I've never been a huge fan, right? They're tremendous musicians, better than I'll ever dream to be, right? I can go to a Tool show and appreciate it for what it is and say, wow, these guys are good. Not my cup of tea, though, right? If you can get people to come to your show and say, hey, listen, you know, I'm not into that type of music, or that wasn't, you know, my cup of tea necessarily, but you guys are good, put on a good show and you entertain. I mean, that's really all you can ask for.
Yep, totally. And so, yeah, so your question as far as like, what would I tell any young musician? Just be yourself, because art, people forget that turning it into a business, it stops becoming art. Like, commerce destroys art. You know, like when I have there's a, I'm not even going to say, it's pretty easy to figure out. I did 2 Generation Kill records. One I produced, and another one we used a producer. The guy is telling us, trying to change guitar riffs and trying to rewrite songs. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, this is our art. why is an outsider telling us to change shit? This is how I feel. I'm expressing myself. When you allow someone to come in and lock you out of your own session, something's wrong. It's not art anymore. It's business. And I'll go to my grave saying it. It's ridiculous. I don't understand it. Like, somehow when you turn art into business, other people think they know what's right. And if, trust me, if this producer knew how to write a hit song, he would have written it himself and put it out. You know what I mean? Like, who the fuck are you? You don't know. You know what I mean? Does that make, you guys are musicians? Like, can you imagine someone telling you, I don't like that riff, take it out and, do something else? I think,
yeah, no,
fuck off. This is my,
Nah.
it's like, okay, I drew something, and some critic comes over and erases it and says, no, change the face, change the eye.
yeah.
That's how I take it personally, like that. So, I guess it depends what you're doing, but these independent record releases and these projects where it's not millions of dollars being thrown at you, like Bob Rock, yeah, he was able to tell Metallica to change for the Black Album. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, that worked.
Great. Yeah, I mean, financially it did. And it's a huge difference, in the record as far as, it's not Master of Puppets, because to me that's their greatest record, Master of Puppets, But, he told them to change things. And I mean, the legendary story that was on Stern was that Enter Sandman originally was about stillborn babies that Hetfield wrote, and Lars and Bob Rock were like, yeah, you're going to need to change those lyrics. Like, this is a hit song and you're singing about dead babies. I guess money can change everything, but when you're in like a little independent band and someone's trying to tell you what to do, it's like, fuck off.
So, curious, anything new out there you're listening to? Is there anything that, that you vibe with?
Honestly, no. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm just so uninformed with anything current, other than like some pop acts that I saw at the Grammys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I thought music I thought creativity was dead. Until my wife like sat down with me and said, let's watch the Grammys, And I was like, I was kind of pleasantly surprised, whether it's pop or not, at least at like some of the creativity in some of the acts, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, wait a minute, they're actually, but as far as metal goes, like, nothing really jumps out at me because, to me, the last good year for that kind of music was like the end Justice for All, Season of the Abyss era, Rust in Peace. Like if I had, I love Peace Sells. I love that record, Megadeth, and I love I love every Metallica record up to Master of Puppets and Justice for All. And of course I listened to the Black Album and stuff they did afterwards. But like, to me, I was in high school when Master of Puppets came out. I was a senior, and I remember hearing it for the first time and being just fucking floored, But what I do notice too, which is kind of shitty, is even if you're not going commercial or whatever, some of these bands, like from my generation, they're just releasing a record every year or every maybe year and a half, 2 years. And it's the same album cover, and it's the same fucking songs, and it's the same subjects, and it's like, oh, God, why don't these guys just take a risk? You have your fan base. You're not going to lose them. Try to record a fucking masterpiece, you know what I mean? Like, but instead, they find that formula that worked for them, and then they just beat it to fucking death, And there's three right in my right in my chamber of my gun right now. I could just say, but I just can't at this point. I don't want to. But like, there's 3 bands maybe 5 that have just released the same record for the last fucking 20 years, over and over and over again, and from fear of just losing their core fan base. And it's like, to me, that's weak.
I mean, to me, like that, you're right. It's fear, and I feel like the fear outweighs the boredom, right? I mean, because you're making, if you're doing the same shit over and over again,
it's so bad. I mean, listen, sometimes you got to make mistakes along the way, and what I also hate is when bands do take risks and it doesn't pan out, and then they blame the record company.
Yeah,
like Testament. That I don't have no problem talking shit about them guys. They're fucking idiots. When they did Return to Serenity or whatever that song was, it was like a ballady kind of thing. I thought it was a good song. I didn't care. So it's kind of cool. Now, looking back, they regret it and they blame the record company for it, and they chose it as the single. I'm like, you wrote it, motherfucker. It's like, and then, did the record company make you get your hair done for the music video too? Where you guys all look like you went to the salon and got your hair parted to the side, and they're in the pool hall playing pool, and like they forced you to go to the video shoot. They forced you to write that song. It's like, no, you wanted to do a song like Metallica's One or something ballady or Sanitarium or Fade to Black, and it fell short. And now you look stupid for doing it. Now you're blaming someone else. Like, own it.
I think that's like when somebody makes a joke and then somebody gets pissed, like, oh, I was just kidding. So like they sold themselves, they did what the record label wanted or what they thought was cool. And then when they get backlash from it, they're like, "Oh fuck, that was shitty."
Yeah,
it wasn't us.
Gary Holt said that the Force of Habit Exodus record was the record that the record company wanted him to make. Bullshit. You fucking wrote the record and fucking put it out, and it flopped. You know what I mean? Just fucking own it. That's what I'd say is that's where my head was at that moment. I documented it on a record. Next.
Yeah.
Kerry King does the same thing with, some of the records they did without Lombardo, It's like, just own it. That's where you were at the time. Here it is. If you don't like the record, just say, it's not one of our better records. But don't blame anyone for it. You fucking wrote it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, sometimes it's, hey, listen, this was the best shit we can come up with at the time.
Yep.
You may put that record out, and then
the
in your next writing session, you come out with amazing stuff. But at that time, that's all you had.
When Korn and those bands all hit, everybody stopped playing guitar solos. That wasn't something. That was a conscious effort to fucking look at the fucking Saint Anger album. The fuck was that?
Yep.
I'm a huge big Metallica fan. There wasn't one guitar solo on the record. They were trying to sound like System of a Down or Korn or whatever it was. It was horrible. But
I thought my fucking car radio was fucked up.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
That snare sound.
Snare sound.
It's crazy, but we can go on for fucking hours. It's going to be the longest podcast ever. So you guys got to pump the brakes, because I can go on for fucking hours with this shit. I told you, you don't have to edit anything because I don't give a fuck. This is my last.
That's awesome.
This is my last stop on the map, and if I babbled on too long, you tell me, and but you don't have to cut anything out that I said, because I own it. Fuck it. What are they going to do?
And that's pretty
ban
awesome.
Me from metal.
That's why we admire you. You say what you mean what you say. You're at peace, and you're not making apologies. So that's pretty fucking awesome. That's a great place to be, and I can tell you that that's not the norm, and it's super refreshing. Super refreshing.
Yeah, fuck it, man. I've been around a bunch of phonies for 30 fucking years where everybody hates each other. They just won't tell. They won't tell you. Being around Billy, it's definitely it's liberating.
So, as you said that this is probably, your last stop. Do we foresee anything in the future? Some solo shit?
Nah, I'm done. solo stuff. Like,
Okay.
that last thing I did was that thing I did, Pain Method, was a solo thing. It should have been just labeled a solo thing, but I'm not. I don't have that drive to go there again. And right now, the M.O.D has a couple of songs in the works that are pretty much written already that I had nothing to do with, written before I rejoined or whatever. And I think, not I think, they want me to play on them, a couple of ripping tunes, I'll do that, but as far as like, I'm creating music here at home with my wife, and it's not metal. It's just kind of just creative stuff that I've always kind of dove around in different genres and played acoustic and played stuff with DMC. And I just want to be creative again, because what happens is I did this tour with Billy. I haven't touched my instrument till like a week before we were going to start playing again. It kind of drains the creativity out of me at this point. You know what I mean? It becomes so redundant. And I think when I was in Propane, I kind of stopped progressing. You find what works, kind of like playing the Ramones kind of riffs, the power chord thing, and you don't care to progress. Sometimes I grow more when I'm not in the music business.
That makes perfect sense.
New chords and new instruments and new techniques, just out of curiosity. With things that aren't acceptable on metal records.
It's like exploring, and I watch and I like the videos that you and your wife put up, and I think it's cool.
Yeah, and I'm not ashamed of that shit either. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's not metal. Great, because I don't even listen. Honestly, I don't want to sound like one of those assholes who's, I don't listen to metal. I really don't.
Listen, I can tell you
I'm
this.
all metaled out.
Me and Archer in a metal band. I have an 8-year-old daughter. I could tell you more pop songs on the radio than I could tell you metal songs, and it is what it is. It's just how it is.
That's the truth. No, I love, what I do here with my wife, and we sit at the piano and we create just stuff out of thin air, and we record it. And something I'm working on with D. I didn't even write it. My wife wrote it, and he wanted something uplifting and cheerful, and I had nothing. So I asked her, "Can I show him one of yours?" And we sent it to him. He freaking loved it. It's kind of like
awesome.
Bittersweet Symphony kind of song.
Nice.
So, we're just kind of, not expecting anything out of it other than working with another. Even though he's a huge star, he's just a creative, fun guy who wants to just enjoy doing music. So to be in the room with someone that electric and magnetic, it's contagious.
That's pretty awesome.
That's why I'm doing it, and that's why I've always done it, whether there was something attached to it or not. It's always been kind of self-serving for me. And when people like it, of course, I love the feeling of admiration. But first and foremost, it's always self-serving. Like, I want to please myself, like I said earlier. Something cool into a car, and it's basically it.
And you don't believe in it. Most people probably won't dig it. So
I'll tell you what, brother, straight up guy. We actually love that you just tell it how it is.
Well, man,
we appreciate this.
I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys for even having any interest in anything that I've done or even doing. So,
nah, dude, we again, like I said, when we saw you at St. Vitus, and we're into your singing, into your guitar playing. It was raw, it was real, and that's the kind of guy you come across when we talk to you, and much appreciated, much appreciated.
Cool, man. I'll run into you guys in person. I mean, if we do the makeup show for Overkill, just hit.
We'll be there.
We'll hook up. All right, cool, guys.
No doubt, brother.
All right, I'll
the
talk
great
to you soon,
Rob
man.
Moschetti from M.O.D. Thank you, pal.
Hey.
Later.
I'll tell you what, that's a real fucking dude right there. Rob Moschetti from M.O.D. Propane. My man has been around. Really fucking down-to-earth, cool dude that tells you how it is. Like that guy right there. So you can go to Facebook at M.O.D. Method of Destruction. Check out some cool photos, some interviews, some past performances that they have from last year. I'm sure they're going to be back. I'm sure they're going to be back soon with Rob Moschetti. Can't wait for that to happen. Now, with that being said, my boy Rock, do you have anything anything left to say.
If you're watching reruns of baseball, then you better fucking call Saul, because you got a case of the blue balls. And you're listening to Not These Two Fucking Guys podcast.
We out.